Lastly, South Asia must not be left out of the Asia-Pacific stability conversations. It is home to two geographically contiguous nuclear powers, an unresolved territorial dispute of Kashmir, and the living memory of several crises that nearly spiraled out of control. Crisis management debate in the Asia-Pacific is incomplete without a serious focus on South Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, now I shall talk about South Asia, where a looming threat of a global scale resides. South Asian strategic outlook is shaped by competing interests of the global power play, complicated Iran-West relations, perpetual instability in Afghanistan, India-Pakistan-China equation, and the unresolved Kashmir dispute that remains at the core of India-Pakistan dyad, leading to regional instability. In the geostrategic realm, nuclearized South Asia presents a risk of strategic miscalculation of a global consequence. Nuclearization of South Asia was a watershed event, beyond which third-party mediation has emerged as a permanent feature of crisis management. Emboldening of India as a net security provider by the West and its ambition to become a regional hegemon is disincentivizing it to engage in conflict management options. Conflicts in South Asia, therefore, remain unaddressed due to weakened capacity and ineffectiveness of the multilateral frameworks, both international and regional. Ladies and gentlemen, let me briefly add that the recent escalation between India and Pakistan has once again underscored how regional crisis management frameworks remain hostage to countries' belligerence. As far as crisis management is concerned, the only functional bilateral communication that exists between the two countries is the Director General Military Operations Hotline, whereas the recent standoff amply underlines significance of maintaining open channels of communications to avert crisis as and when they erupt. In this context, I want to make 4 assertions. First, post-Pahalgam, the threshold of an escalatory war has come dangerously low, implying greater risk on both sides, just not in the disputed territory, but all of India and all of Pakistan. This is extremely detrimental to investments, trading, and development needs of 1.5 billion people of both countries. Secondly, in future, given the Indian policies and polity's extremist mindset, absence of a crisis management mechanism may not give enough time to the global powers to intervene and effect cessation of hostilities. They will be probably too late to avert damage and destruction. Just take a few minutes. Thirdly, the weaponization of water by holding Indus Water Treaty in abeyance is in total defiance of the international laws, since it is an existential threat for the people of Pakistan. If there is any effort to stop, divert, or delay the Pakistan's share of water, as clearly spelled out by our National Security Committee, it could be considered as an act of war. India, in violation of the UN Charter, carried out illegal and unjustified air and missile strikes targeting civilian infrastructure, including the places of worship, resulting into the loss of innocent civilian lives, including women and children. The assumption that Pakistan would not react to the violation of its sovereignty or territorial integrity actually lacks elementary strategic sense. Ladies and gentlemen, loss of innocent lives in Pahalgam, as well as India's aggression against Pakistan, which also killed innocent men, women, and children, are both equally condemnable. Pakistan has always proffered negotiated and diplomatic solutions and repeatedly offered full cooperation to India to work on all contentious issues. I'll just take 2 minutes going to the recommendations. Pakistan desires a peaceful coexistence with India, based on mutual respect, sovereign equality, and most importantly, dignity and honor. Moving forward, 4 recommendations. In both Asia Pacific and South Asia, we need not have new mechanisms. We need to re-energize and strengthen existing bilateral, regional, and multilateral frameworks. Both Asia Pacific and South Asia need to take up the mantle of keeping global institutions relevant and effective. States need to communicate more and more often and more effectively. Finally, it has become imperative to move beyond conflict management towards conflict resolution. This will ensure sustainable peace and an assured crisis management. Finally, for an enduring peace in South Asia, an early resolution of Kashmir in line with the UN Security Council resolutions and as per the aspirations of people is essential. As I said in my talk also, that strategic understanding must precede the crisis management. Unless you think yourself that you are a dominant and you do not want to speak from the position of equality, there's a trust vacuum and there are no respect for the red lines, there are systemic asymmetries, then I think the crisis management is of no use, I would say. And secondly, what I said also, that conflict prevention is better than conflict firefighting. What actually happens when there's no conflict and a dispute or a persistent issue is at hand, it goes under the table and it is not discussed at all. And suddenly there is a crisis which comes up and then the world or the international community becomes aware of that. I'll just give you an example of Kashmir. For example, when there is no crisis, Kashmir is never discussed, and as we always say that it is the Kashmir dispute resolution in line with the aspirations of the people of Kashmir and in line with the UNSC resolutions that will address many issues. The core that resides between Pakistan and India is Kashmir. So unless we do not enter into dispute resolution, conflict resolution, it can be through initially conflict management and then leading to the conflict resolution. But if we don't start at it, and then what you witnessed just recently, the crisis, it will always erupt. We will remain hostage to one incident and we will be back to zero from where we started. So these are the 2 fundamentals we need to draw before we move forward on any discussion. Coming over to your question related to deterrence, balance, and strategic stability. At the end of whatever ceasefire which has now taken place and has been affected, if I say in the deterrence domain, while at the conventional level, between 2 contiguous nuclear powers or any 2 nuclear powers, notion of deterrence is very important because it provides stability. So whenever deterrence is disturbed, it has to be reestablished. So in this case, when the deterrence was disturbed, when the Indians conducted the missile strikes and did the kinetic actions here, so that disturbed the deterrence stability and we had to restore the deterrence, and remaining within the conventional domain, we reestablished the deterrence and tried to achieve that balance.